Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the GR8 podcast. It's been a while, it's been about a week. Sorry about that. I've been having some things come up with my different things going on in the summer, and then went on vacation for July 4th. So now I'm back here, ready to go, July 5th. Let's talk about some Obi-Wan Kenobi and some Stranger Things. I guess I'm just going to jump right into it. I really wanted to talk about these two different shows and what they mean for streaming services, what they mean for Disney, what they mean for Star Wars, all kinds of stuff, what I enjoyed, what I didn't enjoy about either of them. I guess we'll start with Obi-Wan Kenobi. So obviously the new Star Wars Disney Plus show Obi-Wan Kenobi follows obviously Obi-Wan Kenobi through his journey a couple years before the events of A New Hope and a couple years after the events of Revenge of the Sith. So it's about in this like a middle area between where we see Ewan McGregor. He thought he killed Anakin, and then he goes off into running after Order 66. And then where we see Ben Kenobi, Allen Guinness in A New Hope, and how he starts that journey with Luke Skywalker and eventually dies in that movie. Spoiler alert, I guess. So it follows Obi-Wan, his character, what he's doing between the time of those two movies. And this is a great time, I think, that Star Wars has really yet to touch. They touch on it with Solo, and they also touch on it with Rogue One, and I think it's a very, very interesting time in Star Wars. The change in the transformation from the Galactic Senate and the Republic and the Jedi to the Rebels and the Empire. How the Empire changed like all their vehicles and stuff, like and like their army from droids to stormtroopers, and then all that kind of stuff. How that Darth Vader's like rise and the Empire's grasp on the entire galaxy, and then what heroes like Obi-Wan, and then Luke Skywalker comes up. Like, what are those characters doing in between that time? I think it's a really interesting time. Another time that Disney is really focusing on with Star Wars is after Return of the Jedi, which is an interesting time, yes. And then they also did the whole sequel trilogy for that. But I think a whole story about the changing from, the droids and the Separatists to the Empire, and then the Republic and the Jedi's turning into the Rebels is a very interesting concept. And then to focus on Obi-Wan Kenobi and his hardships through what he had to go through as a Jedi during this time. And then, face Darth Vader before they faced again in A New Hope. So it was really interesting. And so the story, the premise of the story is already very interesting. Ewan McGregor came back, I guess, and Hayden Christensen came back to be Darth Vader, and also Anakin Skywalker, which both are very interesting, very cool that both of them came back to reprise their roles in these characters and in these movies that the fans did not take very lightly with the prequel trilogy, but it's very, very cool to see them come back. What I liked. Let's start with what I liked. I liked the last episode, and I liked Obi-Wan's emotions through all of it. I think his emotions were pretty clearly shown. And then the last episode was very, very good. I think Disney either hits the nail on the head with the beginning episode or the finale. And they did not hit the nail on the head for the beginning episode, but they nailed it on the hit the nail on the head. I guess is that the term? Is that what it is for the finale? And I think it was very emotional, very, very well acted, very well shot. I think the lightsaber duels, as small as they are, I think they were very interesting and visually, very, very visually interesting to watch. Because I feel like the lightsabers glow a little bit more than in previous. They look like in previous iterations of Star Wars, at least live action, they look like long stretches of like a stick that just happens to be a color and just so happens to like emit a light. But in this show, they seem like they were actual like big long glow sticks that people fought with, and it seemed like a little bit more emotional because you see like the blue and the red going across Darth Vader and Anakin's face in the finale. I really liked that. I thought that was cool. Their voice changing was really cool because they have James Earl Jones doing the voice for Darth Vader for the most part. I think some of it's a little bit computer generated in AI, but I think he recorded a lot of the lines. I'm not too sure of the ratio on that. But they when Obi-Wan hits Darth Vader's like helmet and it splits in half, sort of, and you can see like a half of Anakin's face. I thought they did a really, really cool job of like changing the voice between them. That worked really well for me. That whole ending fight scene really worked for me. I liked I want to say cinematography and I want to say coloring, but I enjoyed the visual look of the show. Except when they're in like desert planets, I thought that was like so boring and so like not creative whatsoever. But when they were at the Inquisitor base or whatever, and they were like underwater, but you saw the fish and like the blue, and then like you turn on the lightsaber and just like I don't know, just like the feel of like the dark of the base matched with like the aqua color of the water, and then like it seemed like all like that color and that contrast like didn't allow the lightsaber to glow as bright as it normally would, as you would like in a couple other episodes where Obi-Wan would turn on his lightsaber and it's like emits like this giant light that's all around his environment. I also liked the bit, with Princess Leia and all that. But the chase scenes, both of them, are some of the worst Star Wars I have ever seen in my life. And I'll get to like what I didn't like in a second, and believe me, that's a lot. But I also liked how they went to different planets. I thought that was pretty cool. They didn't stay in one place. I understood the story, and I understood what was going on through the whole thing. I understood people's and characters' emotions, but what's the word? What drives them? Their motivations. I understood like all the characters' motivation. I understood Reva's motivations. First, everybody thought she was just trying to become Grand Inquisitor for like the power, but really it was, to get close to Darth Vader to kill him, which is kind of a weird plan. But I really liked how she was a youngling and she was trying to get back at Darth Vader for that. I thought that was very cool. And then her final scene, about to kill, it was Luke. And she just couldn't bring herself to do it because she was like, she became what made her. I thought that was like very cool. Their talk at the end, Obi-Wan and Darth Vader / Anakin, like Darth Vader telling Obi-Wan, like, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did, which has like a lot of implications, but I took it as more that I've, listened to different reviews and people's like take on that, but I took it more as like Darth Vader saying like, this is me and my doing. You sure pushed me to become this evil entity, but I'm the one that eventually made the choice. And Obi-Wan staring at that takes a little bit of like not responsibility, I guess, but like weight off his shoulders. Like he had the whole show. He's like, I did this to like my best friend. And now, like, am I a good Jedi Master now? And like, what happens with like with my mentality? But when Darth Vader says that to Obi-Wan, I think a lot of like relief. He had a lot of relief because I think he carried too much weight. And hearing him say that, it's like, okay, I didn't kill Anakin. Like this entity of Darth Vader did. So I may have pushed him to that point, to that breaking point. Maybe the Jedi Council did. And I sure contributed, but it's not all my fault. And that's okay. It was a little bit of forgiveness for Obi-Wan in himself, which I really liked. So like a lot of things with Obi-Wan and his like guilt and his shame of being a Jedi and how he had to like relearn how to be a Jedi. I thought that was so cool. It's so interesting to see like characters, even like through like the Clone Wars show and, rewatching the original trilogy. It was cool to see this character that's been there from the beginning, and you see his background. And then there's like an area of time where nobody knows what he did, and then like filling in that time, saying like, hey, maybe he wasn't this like wise Jedi master, and maybe he wasn't this clone army general Jedi master. Maybe he was a guy filled with guilt and regret and shame, and he doesn't want. Owen is mad at him, and he doesn't. He has people that like are on his side that don't like him anymore. I just really liked how low they went with Obi-Wan. I thought that was good. I liked how Princess Leia was in the show and how young she was. I thought that was pretty cool, and how she added a little bit of like youthfulness to the show. I think that's, I talked a lot about how much I like it, and you thought I would like the show, but honestly I didn't, because the chase scenes are pretty awful. The action scenes are not all that great either. I didn't feel like there's a whole lot of stakes throughout the show. I understood that Reva was trying to get to Princess Leia to get to Obi-Wan. I understood that. But, it just felt like this could have been a movie, but I don't think there's enough story for the movie. But you had so much story that you filled 6 episodes, and some of the episodes were only like 30 minutes. So it's like, did they have enough story to fill out a movie? Or no, I fill out a TV show? Or did they have too less of a story to fill out a movie? I don't really know. So they just like went with like this weird 6 episode series with all 30-minute long episodes. The little bit of like on the sand planet, I don't know what planet it was. There's like so many sand planets in Star Wars, where there's like this one little Imperial checkpoint that was pretty awful. That's also some of the worst. It's so annoying because like a lot of these Disney Plus shows that are Star Wars are turning out like some good Star Wars content, good story element content, but at the same time they're turning out this like garbage stuff. Like what is like the first episode when Princess Leia is running away from these bandits who I don't even know who they were. Yeah, obviously you find out, but like, what was their plan? Just wait until Princess Leia walks out of her castle? Just wait until she just wants to be alone one day and just like run off. And then like you have 3 bounty hunters running after a child, and they can't catch her. And then it happens again on the other planet, which I don't understand why that wasn't Coruscant. It was like some other planet or whatever. I don't understand why that wasn't Coruscant. Like, why do they have two of the same geographical like locations, but name them different things, like sand planets and Tatooine and Jakku? Who cares? And like these like city planets of Coruscant and whatever the other planet's name was. Like, it's so weird. And I just wish this show was more focused on the Inquisitors, the Obi-Wan's emotions, and Darth Vader. Like, that's all we needed. We didn't need this this weird plot of like Darth Vader. Like, okay, so Reva was. I understood people's motivations, like in like the long run. Reva wanted to get to Darth Vader to kill him, and we slowly reveal that Darth Vader wanted to get to Obi-Wan to kill him. Obi-Wan wanted to stay out of it, but got roped into it by Bail Organa to go find his daughter. Like that, that's it. But there's a lot of woven in storylines and plots that like seem to like not really like they captured her at the Inquisitor base, and then like the very next episode is Obi-Wan just like walking around the base. And sure, there's like a cool scene of like him using the Force to hold back the water until like the stormtroopers came in the hallway. But that was like the one interesting scene. At the end of it with the snow speeders, like the snow speeder just like hovering idly. but he wasn't moving. It wasn't moving. Like that. Is that like a new thing that snow speeders can do? Why can't they just, do that back at Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back? It's so I don't even remember the second to last episode, because it's just like I don't even remember the main plot of the first and second episode. I thought that like a lot of the I thought a lot of the set pieces seemed really cheap, and also these planets that they're going on, that they're going to, filled with life, filled with like a big population, people walking around, doing things, marketplaces. There is a scarce amount of aliens on these planets. This is something that I thought of. I think the first episode, where Riva was talking to Owen. I think, I really don't know, and there was only humans, human like characters, human like bystanders in the crowd. Why is that? Why is there only humans? Like if it was, I don't know where this place was, but Star Wars and the different planets are like massive amalgamations of different species. Like why was there only humans? Why can't you just add? Like it's cool watching A New Hope because you see how many like humans in Mos Eisley is the minority. That's cool because you see different alien species and different alien races, all named different names and all sound different, all like look different. And then you see like these Disney Plus shows where like all of the characters are human, and the other Grand Inquisitor, he's supposed to be an alien race, and compared to what he looks like on Rebels, is a lot different. And people say like, oh, they changed up what they look like on animation because like that's how it works, and when it translates to live action, it doesn't may not like work out. But his alien species was already shown back in Revenge of the Sith, where they go to Yucatan, and yeah, I think that's the name of the planet. And his like the guy with like the robe with the hood over, and he has like lines on his face and the sharp teeth, like they're the same species. And why does the Grand Inquisitor look like a balloon that was like a white balloon that people drew like eyes and a face on? But what I don't understand, I don't understand. Like these shows don't look right. These shows don't look like they are on a Disney budget. And I already said that like visually, I think it looks good because of like the coloring and the contrast, but they didn't do anything visually interesting with like the camera movements. You could show Obi-Wan's shame and guilt using like dark colors, and slowly zoom on in his face, or like be a little bit like show the cinematography in such a way that like shows his like loneliness. I felt like it was just shot like every other show ever. I don't know. It just had no the camera and the framing and the blocking were just not interesting at all. The coloring of the show, I will say, when they were in interesting environments, looked good, but all the other time, it did not hit the nail on the head. I liked what they were going for with Obi-Wan's guilt and shame, and I liked what they were going for with Darth Vader trying to get to Obi-Wan to face him again. And I liked what they did with Reva and like her being a youngling and then like not being able to kill Luke Skywalker because of like her past. I liked that, but those things are not necessarily like focused on. They're not the main drive of the story. If these shows get more emotional, then like they would be so much better. They would be so much better instead of just like this weird Disney Plus Star Wars schlock that they keep putting out. I think the book of Boba Fett is the worst piece of Star Wars content of all time, and I stand by that because it is. It's awful. The story is awful. Boba Fett's character is awful. The side characters are awful. Like it was never visually interesting. It was never cool. It felt so cheesy. And Obi-Wan Kenobi started like teetering on that line. But obviously they were able to rope it back and, not go all out like Boba Fett riding a Rancor, fighting a huge droid with a shield. I'm glad that they didn't, and I'm glad that they kept it at least focused on the characters. But yeah, I wish that they did a little bit more with the Inquisitors. Flesh them out a little bit more. I wish I seen more of the Inquisitors and how they felt about Darth Vader. I wish I saw. I wish the show was a little bit, pandered towards Darth Vader. I think that would have been cool. I think a show about Darth Vader or even a movie could be cool. And then like this with Obi-Wan Kenobi and his rivalry with him could have fleshed out both of their emotions against each other a little bit more. It was only really shown in the final fight of the finale. A little bit was shown halfway through the show when they had that little very weird lightsaber duel on that planet. I say that it was weird because Obi-Wan's like ducking in and out of like different things, and it felt felt cheesy. It felt like it was rushed. That was like the rematch of the century, and like it just felt like weird. I don't know. And then like at the end of the fight, Darth Vader was pulling Obi-Wan into the fire, like showing him like this is what it felt like to get burnt by lava. Obviously not to the full extent, but like if I can like run you through fire, and how he like touched the gas or whatever liquid with his lightsaber and it all lit up with fire. Like again, like these shows, especially Obi-Wan, are filled with like cool little things that they thought about, but the overarching story and the plot elements like weren't thought about at all, or at least not to the extent that they should have been. It's so bamboozling to see Star Wars, Disney helm Star Wars at such like a weird capacity, because in almost everything that Disney has put out with Star Wars, you could pick out things that you really, really like and what works, and then you can pick out things that really, really did not work and what you didn't like. And it's always like about this ratio of like, kind of like this and what I like this, and it's just like, I love a lot of things about the prequels, and I understand that a lot of it's terrible, but going back and watching Revenge of the Sith, it's so interesting. Everything's so interesting. Everything is, fluid, and, I don't know. It's just like, obviously there's some things I can pick out, but, for the most part, I can say that it was good. I can say that the original trilogy is good. However, I don't think Return of the Jedi is very good, but, I could pick out little small things that I like and I don't like. But most of the time, it's things that I do like. And then watching this stuff that, Disney has been putting out with Star Wars, it's just like, it's weird, man. It's weird. I don't understand. So that's my rant about Obi-Wan Kenobi. I dipped into like the mass general knowledge of Star Wars and my thoughts about all of it. And that's definitely coming in a, future video. Don't worry. It's coming. But I guess I'm done talking about that and all like my gripes about it. We can talk about Stranger Things season 4 now. In contrast, I really liked the show. I was not expecting to like it as much as I did, and it's having like a massive cultural change over on TikTok and social media. Different songs that are being played and like different like clips from the show are like all over social media. It's so, I have friends that are just talking about it that like never seen the show, like don't really watch shows or watching Stranger Things. I know that Stranger Things has been very, very popular in the past. I know that. And I know that it's, entwined with culture and people my age, being on the most popular streaming service and being one of their like flagship shows. I understand that. But this show seems to be like culture changing. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody is referencing it. Everybody, so it's very interesting to see a show that has been on Netflix since like 2015 or something, 2016. It's been a long time. And the progression of the show, from like characters, plot, and budget and then culture shock from season 1 to season 4, now out in 2022. It's so interesting because going back, and I didn't watch obviously the other seasons, but I went back and like watched like some recap videos, and it's been so long. It's been what, 2.5 years since the last season. That's crazy. And they came back with an absolute banger of a season. It's crazy. Like, I remember I remember watching season 1 and very liking it. And then season 2 was pretty good. I liked it. Season 3, I don't think I liked it very much because like I thought it was boring. And then coming into season 4, I had my hopes down. But if it wasn't for my friends watching it and social media, I probably would have watched it, definitely, but not with as high expectations as I did. And I went in there with, pretty mild expectations, fairly high for a show that I didn't like a lot of, or some of, I guess, in the past. But this season blew me away. I don't think it's the best show I've ever seen. It's definitely not. It's not the best thing I think Netflix has put out, but it's like up there with season 1. I think the show is very, very good, very well written, and I think it's very well paced. The editing in this show, not just like, scene by scene or whatever, or like within the scenes, cutting back in between like conversations and stuff, but the pacing throughout the entire show is very, very good. It kept me interested. They cut scenes, right? Like, characters would talk and then they would get like an objective. It's like, okay, let's do it. And then it would cut and transition to like where another group of characters are at. And we would be with them for a couple minutes. And then it would cut and transition. They use like this like slam transition. That's the only way I can explain it, where like the camera would follow a character and like put something down on the table like really fast, and then it would have like a loud sound with it, and it would like and then the sound would fade out into like the next scene that they wanted to display, and then the next scene would cut like immediately after it, and then you hear the sound fade out. So it's a nice visually and audibly like good transitions between scenes, and the scenes in them very well paced, very well acted. I think this show is very well acted. I think there's like couple like lines and different like things that like, okay, that was kind of cringe. That was kind of weird. That, a kid back in the 80s would really talk like that, like what, I mean, I guess so, but the 80s wasn't all like weird and cringe. But I think overall, I think it was very good. I think the cinematography for this show, I like, this is what I was trying to build up to. Talk about the editing, talk about the pacing, talk about the acting. The cinematography in this show is the best cinematography I've seen in a TV show. And that might not be saying a whole lot. But I think the cinematography was always visually interesting to watch. So interesting to watch. They use blocking very, very well. They use framing very, very well. The colors were always like popping out on the screen. Granted, like half the time they're in like this like literally the upside down world in like this like weird hellish looking blue, which I thought it was a little bit more red in the earlier seasons, but it was like very blue. And in the finale, I wasn't sure if I really liked that, but a lot of times they go to like dark places and like, oh my goodness, I thought like visually the show was very, very good. Even the CGI was good. I was blown away by not like just the story, because the story's good, and I'll get into that in a second. But the cinematography and the camera work was just so interesting. I literally looked forward to watching the next episode during the previous episode to see what they were going to do next. And that's when I know like a show has like captivated me in the style of like technicality. I thought that was just so interesting. There was one shot, and I know I can talk all day about like the framing, blocking, and cinematography for like the show and like not give you examples. It's kind of hard to give you examples because like every show, every season of the show has been like, kind of like vanilla. And this show is like all season they're just like going at it with the cinematography. And it's also hard to like pick out certain certain like things that like I really like, because a lot of it was just just shot well. It was just shot very well. But one shot that I really liked was the kids. I think it was in the finale or close to the finale. Which I'll talk about, like the timing of all the episodes like start like mushing together because of how long they are. But there's a shot of the kids on the bike. So there's 4 of them coming towards the camera. The camera goes down, starts turning. It goes black, turns upside down, and the camera just kept turning. And then the kids in the upside down, who were also on bikes, and the frame was upside down, and they were coming towards the camera. So it was like there were all 8 of these characters were coming towards the camera, and one of them was right side up, and one of them was upside down. And that communicated very clearly of where each of the groups of kids were, and what they were doing, and where they were going. And I thought that was so interesting. I was like, when they started the camera move, I was like, they better do it. They better, like, if I do it, I will definitely talk about it on my podcast. And they did it. Like, it's so hard to explain. I guess I explained it pretty well, but if you watch the show, you know what I'm talking about. Like the small, like little camera movements like that. There's also another one where Eleven was running down some stairwell, and she was coming towards the camera on the left, coming down the stairwell, and the camera was already in motion and movement, and it started on the left where she was coming down towards the camera, and then the camera kept on moving right, and 11 stayed in frame the whole time, and also in the middle of the frame, and then the camera got to the right of the stairwell where 11 was going, eventually got down to like the plateau, and then turned around and went down to the right, down the stairwell, and the camera kept her in focus, in frame, and blocked it very well while moving. So it's like little small things that like you notice. They could have just put the camera down, set it up, and said, okay, Millie Bobby Brown, just run down these stairwells really fast. But no, they took their time. They I don't know how many takes it was, but you could definitely tell like the production in just those 2 small examples. I guess they're not small examples because they stood out to me so well, but I guess you can tell in those pretty big examples that the production budget for this show was like off the charts. Like, I don't know how much money they put into this season, but I'm glad that they put every single penny into it because it really showed on screen. And yeah, you can pay these kids, and now some of them are becoming like big time actors and other things and stuff like that. So you have to pay them well, but you also have to pay your production team. And you can definitely tell that they put a lot of money into the set and designs and the production and the cinematographers and the editors. You could definitely tell that there was wealth and money put into this. Was also a lot of passion that was put into this show. And almost everything worked for me. There was, a couple times I was like, okay, like let's get this thing going. But it was always shot well. It was always acted well. And I always understood where all the characters, all their motivations, and they also all had different like character personality types. I thought that it's just like everything was just laid out so well in this show. And I'm so glad that like I was watching this show because I was like, I like it better be good, because the last season didn't really impress me. And, now we're still in the 80s, and now we have like a whole different plot line. And there's like 3 or 4 different plot lines like going on during the entire show. There's one in Russia, there's one in California, and there's one in Indiana and in Hawkins. And all 3 of them are fairly interesting. But obviously the one in Hawkins is going to be the most interesting. And all the main characters are split up. But there's times where I was like, okay, the Hawkins storyline is a little bit more interesting than what's going on in California and in Russia. And then like there's times where like, okay, the Russia storyline is, going pretty well. And then they went to the California, and that's like, okay, that's getting a little bit emotional. I really like that. I think that's, it was a little bit more emotional than like the other, locations were. So every character gets something to do for the most part. There's a lot of characters. There's like upwards of like 20 characters that you have to kind of keep up with. And it's insane. But again, they pace it out. They edited it out so well that an audience member, such as myself, that don't really remember the past seasons, but remember what they felt about the last seasons. And again, I watched a recap, but still, you don't really need to watch a recap. You just have to know where like everybody is, I guess. Coming into it, low expectations, but also high expectations. And I just was blown away by the production and the editing, the pacing. A lot of the acting was hit or miss, but most of the part was pretty good. I don't think Will Byers' character, the actor is a very good actor. I'm sorry. I think your name is Noah Schnapp. I'm sorry, pal. I don't think you're the best actor of all time, but hey, it's okay. Millie Bobby Brown, is really good. I think David Harbour is pretty good. He's very like stone cold, stoic kind of guy. I think Steve's character is good. Nancy is very good. Steve was like obviously like the babysitter, but I think in this season he was like kind of a jerk. And like, yeah, I get it. That's cool. I don't really know if I really like that, but it worked for this show, but I don't think it worked for me necessarily. Nancy was put in the front of like a lot of the show, which that's cool. Like, that's awesome. She's a good character. So, I like the villain of Vecna. I like the little twists and turns that they had, that Vecna is number one in like the long list of kids that have these weird, I think that's cool that they're answering questions, but also leaving a lot of questions on the table of like, where are these kids coming from? It looks like it seemed like, 11 was just born from like a normal mother. Sure. She had, I think it's shown in the earlier seasons, or at least implied in this season, that she had like some mental disorders, but I think that's cool that 11 was just born with telekinetic powers, and taken by like this weird facility and group, and her childhood through that program was shown in a cool way, going back in memories, trying to get her powers back. Everything just was thought out. Everything was thought out in this season. Everything, the times where something in a specific location wasn't, it's not as interesting as in maybe another location. They just cut right to like the more interesting part. It's so funny that this is a good point that I want to maybe end on about Stranger Things, is that it's so interesting that the last couple of weeks, definitely the last like 2 months, that a lot of people, especially on Twitter, are talking about like, I really, Netflix's price hikes and like their threat of like adding ads for a couple of accounts, and then like they're restricting access for people like with the password and login and different accounts and things of that nature. Everybody's like, okay, like I'm going to cancel my Netflix subscription plus everything that they have in their catalog kind of sucks. So I'm really not too sure about keeping this, keeping the streaming service, but they come out with this absolute banger of a season, and granted they're still on this like release all the episodes all at once, but they released season 4 volume 1, like episodes like 1 through 6, which are all like an hour and 15 minutes long, out on a specific time. And then they waited like less than a month, I think, to release the last 2 episodes. It's like the last episode is 2.5 hours long. That's a whole movie. That's longer than most movies coming out today. And that's just one episode. Granted, the finale, but it's one episode of a Netflix show. So you see like a lot. It was interesting because most of the audience is like, I'm going to cancel my Netflix subscription after Stranger Things, or even before Stranger Things, because of all their threats of like all the things that they're going against the customer. And granted, yes, they are. And then they come out with this like banger of a show, and it shows that Netflix still has it, still can grasp audiences, can have its fist, like have like, culture in their fist, and say like, we still can put out good shows that, direct culture and direct society and direct, social media as a whole, it's just so interesting that like perfect timing. And I don't know what the dialogue is going to be after everybody, watches Stranger Things and, has the reviews up and talks about it. And I don't know what the dialogue is going to be with Netflix within the next couple weeks and months, because are people going to go back to okay, I'm going to still cancel my Netflix subscription? I don't see many people not liking this season and then change. I see a lot of people changing their mind. People that before this new season, it's so weird because it's all centered around this new season. And if it was a flop, then you would see a lot Netflix decline in accounts being made and money revenue. But I can only see that they're putting they're putting the money that we're giving them to good things. They're putting money into things that they know that their audience will watch. You could definitely see with the production budget and the acting and everything that's going on with the show. You can definitely see that they're using the money that we're giving them. So it's so interesting. It's so interesting to me as a consumer of these TV shows, and then a buyer of these Netflix of the streaming services, specifically Netflix, that you want to threaten us with canceling your Netflix subscription? Okay, well, here's one of the best season of shows that we've ever put out. Here's not only one of the best seasons of the shows that we put out, but we've also, not just because of the story, but we've also put all your money, all our money, I guess, well, all of your money, the consumer's money back into the show, showing that we still have it. We still got it. We could still generate dialogue and conversations about our shows that we put up on our Netflix, on our streaming service, and people still talk about them. Years later, after Stranger Things season 1, years later, now we're on season 4. All these kids have grown up, and you can definitely see the production budget has gone up, and they use it in the right places. So very cool for Netflix. Very, very cool to see where they go from here, what the audience says from here, what social media and the general thought about Netflix. If they keep on making shows like this, if they keep on take a step back, still invest money and time into their good programs and their good shows and their good movies and their good franchises, and stops putting out so much junk on their catalog, and really hone in on good things, get good writers and take a little bit more time on their shows and movies. I see Netflix I think already with the show, they've regained their crown with the best streaming service, but I see them taking it and running with it if they keep doing this, because obviously they're way ahead of other shows. Sure, HBO Max has Warner Brothers money, and then obviously Disney Plus and Hulu have Disney money. But again, with Obi-Wan Kenobi being very underwhelming with the amount of what they had, and Netflix doing with what they can do with their money now and churning out good shows pretty much almost at the exact same time. It's just crazy. It's just crazy to see that Netflix of all people are putting out good shows where you think it's not it's all about where you put your money. Disney looks like they're not putting their money and time and effort into Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is one of their most famous characters in Star Wars, and they're not putting time and effort into it. But Netflix is putting time and effort and money into Stranger Things, which obviously is one of their flagship shows. So it's a very interesting dialogue and very interesting conversation to have, to where are streaming services putting their money? What are they doing with the consumer money? What do they want to focus on? TV shows or movies, and how they want to expand different franchises. Very interesting, very cool conversation to have about what works, what doesn't work with a Disney Plus Star Wars show, and Star Wars, which I absolutely love, compared to a Netflix original show about a bunch of kids in the 80s fighting aliens. as simple as it can be, like, and they had a fairly compelling and convoluted story, and, they knocked it out of the park because they took their time with it and they put their money into it. And it's just like, it almost sucks for Disney, and it almost sucks for, Star Wars fans. It's like, oh my gosh, if you just do what Netflix did. It's so funny to say that. If you just do what Netflix did, saying that to Disney, your problems will be solved. And it's just like, I don't think they're not showing any signs of, doing what Netflix is doing. So, very interesting conversation to have. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope I didn't bore you too much about my reviews, but I always want to make this more of like a dialogue and conversation between you and me and my audience of like two, 3 people. But as always, very interesting to talk about. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm really proud of the audience that I've created with my podcast. I hope you guys have a great day. Hope you guys have a good night. Happy July 4th, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.